start off by telling you guys a story. 11 years ago, I dropped out of college, and I was just 24 credit hours shy of earning a degree. There were a couple of reasons for my failure back then. Immaturity was a big one. Indecision about what I really wanted to do with my life was another. And another was a little required course called speech that I really just didn't want to take. I was a little bit afraid of taking it. Ironically, after dropping out of college, I began a career with a telecommunications company that eventually led to me speaking in front of large groups of people on a consistent basis. Change came knocking on my door again when that local company that I'd worked for 10 years announced that they were selling the company to a larger organization. And with the support of my husband and my family, who are sitting in the audience today, I embraced that change as an opportunity to go back to school and earn my degree so that I could become what I had finally discovered that I wanted to do, which is become a teacher. So that brings us to today, and that brings us back to that required course called speech, which despite all of my experience, I still have a lot of fear over. My name is Mandy Gibson, and today I will be talking with you about my strengths and my weaknesses in public speaking, as well as some specific things that I will be doing throughout this course in order to improve my skills. We're going to start with my strengths. I have had the opportunity to work with and learn from some excellent public speakers. And I have really developed some, I feel, strengths in this area. The first and most important is enthusiasm. Those who know me best know that I am pretty enthusiastic about almost everything that I do. And I really feel that particularly when you're doing a speech, you have to be enthusiastic about the subject that you're talking about. Because if you're not excited about what you're talking about, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for your audience to be excited about listening to you. The second strength that I feel that I have is engaging my audience. And I do that by maintaining eye contact with as many people in the audience as I can and trying to keep my tone of voice conversational and not monotone. I try to keep things natural. The third strength that I feel that I have is making sure that my audience knows that the content of the speech is relevant to their daily life. Studies show that we are marketed about 4,000 times a day. You hear things from the radio, you see billboards, you see ads on TV. So there are about 4,000 different things coming at you every day. And we've gotten really good at filtering out the unimportant information. So I know that. And whenever I begin a speech, I always make sure that at the very beginning, I try to make sure that my audience knows what they can gain from the speech and how they can use that in their daily life so they become more engaged in the speech. Now, the same opportunities that allowed me to develop those strengths also showed me several weaknesses that I have. Those who know me best also know that I am not a naturally organized person. And so when I am writing speeches, I have a really hard time narrowing down the 2 or 3 most important topics to discuss. I tend to feel that every piece of information is important, and I try to share too much with my audience. So oftentimes when I do that, it leaves my audience feeling as though they haven't really learned a lot because there's been too much information that's been thrown at them, and they can't really focus on the 2 or 3 main points. Another weakness that I have is when I get nervous, I allow myself to ramble and get off course. And the third and final weakness that I'll be sharing with you today is that I often use ambiguous language. I have a hard time being direct and going straight to the point. And I know that whenever you are delivering a speech, it's very valuable to be direct, and it's very valuable to say what needs to be said in as few words as possible, using as simple language as you can possibly use. That way the majority of your audience gets what you're saying instead of trying to think about what that word means. So, we've talked about my strengths, we've talked about my weaknesses. The final thing that I'll be talking with you guys with is some specific areas that I will be working on throughout this course in order to strengthen my skills. The first is, whenever I am writing speeches for this course, I will make sure that I narrow down the 2 or 3 main points that I would like to cover. And I will stick to those 2 or 3 points, and I will make sure that they're fully developed so that whenever I deliver a speech, the audience can go away from that feeling as though they really learned something. The second is I will get rid of the big words. I'm going to use as simple language as I can possibly use to make sure that the audience only has to focus on the 2 or 3 main points, and they don't have to be thinking about what that fancy word that she just said was. And now that we've talked about my strengths and my weaknesses in the areas that I'll be covering throughout this course, I'd like to leave you with a quote from one of my favorite sources of inspiration, John Wooden. He says, "If you aren't making mistakes, then you aren't doing anything. I'm positive that a doer makes mistakes." I can assure you that I will make a lot of mistakes throughout this course. But my hope is that you guys don't see any of those, because my hope is that I will be making those mistakes during practice. All right? But I know the value of making mistakes, and I know the value of putting yourself out there. If you want to learn something new, if you want to develop new skills, you've got to try new things. And you're going to fall down the first time, but you can pick yourself back up and go on. So I commit to being a doer. Let's have fun this semester. Let's have fun this course. And again, I thank you for joining me today. And you can applaud.